South Africa is facing a chronic housing problem with more and more people living in informal settlements that are built without permission. Over 2.4 million families are waiting for homes. In Cape Town alone, there are now 683 informal settlements, many of which started during the COVID-19 lockdown. These areas keep growing, often in unsafe places like wetlands and flood zones. To help us unpack the issue, we are now joined by the Minister of Human Settlements, Thembi Simelane. Minister, very good morning to you. Thank you so much for making time for us this morning. In terms of the report looking into the number of informal settlements in the country, is there an indication of what the number is and perhaps maybe a breakdown of the various metros?
Well, thank you very much. We have a total of about 4,075 informal settlements countrywide, of course, led by City of Johannesburg. I think it's sitting at around 800 and something, the same with eThekwini, followed closely by the Western Cape, the City of Cape Town. And of course, other small provinces, spoils, check the spoils of that 4,000, a number which half of it, around 2,000, is carried by metros alone. Now, there are two problems which we are trying to solve urgently there. One, it's what you know of, and every South African will know. For example, everyone complains about our housing database system. Who has a house? Who has received it? Who has not? Who has been waiting for 15 years or 20 years or whatever, in comparison to one we've registered last year or this year or yesterday? We are rolling out a system with SITA, which will register everybody who has received and who has not received. It will deal with some of the corruption issues which have been reported, a house which belongs to somebody who doesn't know, etc. You will be able to go to the system with your ID number and perhaps be shocked that you own a RDP which you don't know about. There are South Africans who complain like that. I've received a bill from the City of Johannesburg and I don't have a house. And you go there, he or she doesn't stay there. The second part is the list now can be able to tell us that around 70% of those people who are currently in the manual list of municipalities and provinces are outside what we call our housing beneficiary list. It's a young Aldrin, just like me, who unfortunately is unemployed, but wants to start his family or her family, then goes and put up a check in an unregistered, in most instances, unsafe, and not even verified areas as habitable. What are we doing about that? We're accelerating. We've set aside money for service stands. What do we mean by service stands, Aldrin? We're going to put infrastructure, which is what is difficult for municipalities to do, and create formalized settlements. Even if we don't build a house for you, the little that you have, because you do see houses even in informal settlements, which unfortunately they will have to be demolished. Rather avoid that we give you a service stand. It will have water, it will have electricity, it will have roads. It is relatively cheaper and affordable for government to cater in a category of the missing people who are not covered by the police. The missing people, which is the third part, who are not covered by the police, but are not covered by a commercial bank. Let's make an example. Thembi works in a filling station. He earns around 4,000 a month. There's no bank that will finance him or her. We've got the National Housing Finance Corporation, which finances people who are earning between 3,500 and 22,000, giving a housing grant. We call them first home owners. So we are even moving into rural areas now. 3 provinces, three inkosi in KZN have approved land for us for free, which will also make it relatively cheaper and affordable, because one of the cost drivers in human settlement has been the land question.
Yeah.
Then we are increasing our social housing as well, which talks to our rental stock. For a young Aldrin who's now working, starting a family, needs to stay closer to a CBD, we're pulling back old buildings of government to ensure that we cover into the crisis. It is big, but it is not insurmountable.
Minister, on the part around people not knowing whether they own houses or, I don't know, does the government not know how many people own houses? What's the clarity around that? Because if you think about it, if you have a title deed, surely.
Okay, that was going to be the last part I was going to get to, Aldrin, of title deeds. Now, there are two categories of houses, at least. There could be more, yes. But your grandmother could have been staying in Mdantsane in a four-room house since 1979. She still does not have a title deed because our backlog has been huge. And the house is still registered in the name of the state. That's very easy to solve. We're actually dealing with those backlogs. With DM, we go now, we carry the legal responsibility on behalf of those families we hand over. I'm sitting with around 80,000 or so title deeds. We'll be launching our title deed Friday next week to make sure that we continue with that. Then you have got a category of 30 years. Let's call it post-democracy. They still are sitting in a database called Limpopo Province or Mpumalanga Province. Now, these are even formalized settlements where we've built, where you know that your aunt stay in a RDP and was given a key by Premier whoever in the new dispensation, but the title deed it's still not yet out. Now, the third category are the ones where there has been involvement in the main of councillors in a very unscrupulous manner, where you are in the database, you qualify for a house. When the house is finished to be built, they don't call you. They call me, their friend or whoever. They give me your house. Mm-hmm. But they can't change on the system that the house now belongs to Thembi. The house belongs to you, but you have never stayed in it. So there are two processes. We'll be dealing with the proclamation there, and then we'll deal with Aldrin in terms of correction. But obviously, the last element which creates a crisis is those who have built about 4 million houses and they're no longer using them. Who they give them to, we don't know. Who did they register to? We don't know. I went to Northwest. I was carrying title deeds. First house, I went okay. Second house, I went okay. Third house, they say, no, Aldrin no longer stays here. He sold that RDP to me. In fact, to my mother. My mother passed away in 2019, and I'm the son. What does our policy say? Our policy says, yes, after 10 years of occupation, you can sell the house, but you need to sell it to a South African who is part of the policy cover, which means you must sell it to Aldrin's grandmother and not Thembi, who doesn't qualify to stay in that RDP. We're uncertain as yet, Aldrin, on this last part, in terms of how many people are in that situation. But you go into every imbizo, into every township, you have people complaining, residents who are saying, no, we hear you, Minister. You say we don't qualify. But how come unregistered and undocumented foreigners are staying in these new houses, not even old, new, but you say we don't qualify and we're unemployed? It looks unfair, yes, and it needs to be dealt with.
Yeah. Let me quickly ask you, Minister, about the sustainability of free housing. Back in 2011, the First Minister for Human Settlements, Tokyo Sugwalo, had mooted this idea that it is unsustainable to continuously give free housing. And back then, the backlog was at around 2.3 million. Now we're speaking about 2.4 million. So that backlog is increasing as well. Is it sustainable to continuously give free housing? Will there or should there be a cut-off date?
It's not sustainable. The wisdom of Minister Sugwalo still stands today. Minister Sisulu echoed the same thing, Minister Kubai. We're busy with the tabulation of our white paper, which reviews the entire housing policy and touching in some of the areas that we have already touched on, but also touching in terms of ownership as well. In which any other country would you allow a person to sell a house that he or she has not built? Because then that means you have means to accommodate yourself. Give it to somebody who can't have means for now, possibly. So you're not punishing Aldrin.
But that's not the truth, Minister. I don't think that's a true assessment, that just because you have a house and you're selling the house, that means that you've got alternative. I even feel that from the policy approach that government has taken, not taking into consideration that you give an individual who's unemployed a house, and then you say to that individual, you must be able to maintain and take care of the house, yet the indigent program is not able to cover all of the expenses that an individual has when it comes to water and electricity. What do? I want bread on the table more than a brick and mortar
But Aldrin,
roof.
where are you going to eat this bread from? Under a tree?
While in a shack. I'm sure, Minister, you've heard of people who sold their RDP houses and went back to shacks.
So that the state can build for them again. I'm not sure if it's a manageable cycle. I haven't heard solely of such. I've had applications where people want to extend the RDPs, which is allowed, because the act is not meant to punish you, that because today you are a petrol attendant, even if you have a degree, you are a clerk, you have a degree, but when your life continues, therefore you are stuck with a 40 square meter house. That is why even our yard considers, in terms of the service stands that we give and the RDP stand that we give, that there will be growth in this person. So we call it a starter pack. It's a starter to enhance you to be able to go to greater heights. I've heard about those, and you will see in most formalized settlements, there are big buildings that emanate from that. And we are glad as the state to say, we are happy we've given a starter pack, and now the process of life is taking its course and there is growth, whether it's your children who are helping you or your great children who are helping you, who are happy for granny. We've heard about houses which gets to be sold to people of the same generation relatively. We approve such and we register it accordingly. But we have, which I was saying to you, the third category, which we are not fully in depth, but it has been recorded in all the engagements we have in various areas, that houses are illegally occupied. And if you go into the system, it's still owned by a South African, but physically it's either it's another South African staying, or is it documented foreign, or is undocumented, which what causes a complaint. But I wouldn't want to argue. Maybe you have seen what you have seen. I haven't seen it. A person selling a house to buy food so that he goes back into an informal settlement. Maybe renting it out, I would think, would make a bit of because if you sell it for 30,000, Aldrin, how often are you going to? I mean, how long are you going to live out of this 30,000?
Yeah, the things that people do out of desperation,
maybe
Minister,
it's out
sometimes.
of desperation, and that is why I'm saying I wouldn't want to say this category doesn't exist. But I do believe that it will be part of those who now can benefit in our service stands. Yes, it is a program we're running fairly well in the Eastern Cape, even in Northern Cape, our smallest. They are at around 20,000 service stands now. They've got over a number of people who are still waiting in formalized settlements.
Minister, just quickly in conclusion, so one of the issues that the city of Joburg is raising is that because of evicting people from these informal settlements is having to find the alternative accommodation, and unfortunately they don't have the budget for that. Is there a need to review that particular legislation that requires that? And I know that the Constitutional Court has dealt with this matter before as well with Abahlali Basemjondolo.
Yeah, it's a constitutional matter. It's the National Assembly that may have to review that and come into an agreement. And, you know, opposing policies in terms of what parties believe in with regard to how the Constitution gets to be made. What we know, agreeing with the city of Johannesburg and eThekwini also, is that it is not affordable. Land is expensive. Land that is within the parameters of the policy, which tries to say, let's reduce keeping Aldrin 55 kilometers away from a city center, because he or she spends his life on transportation. So we use relatively a 29, 30 kilometer radius inward into a CBD. To find land in that space, you pay an arm and a leg as government. But what have we done to recapitalize? Our discussion with Public Works, we have already been given around 2,000 plus hectares of state land, which we can utilize at no cost in terms of buying the land, because it's the state land, to build our low-cost housing and service stands for our people.
Right.
Some of it, yes, is still outside this 30-kilometer radius, but for me, it's better than to have nothing. And it's mostly in the city of Johannesburg, in eThekwini, in Buffalo City, the areas of Umtata, where there's difficult to find land as well. Not very metropolitan, but you should know that even today we're still struggling to settle our flood victims because of a land problem.
Yeah,
Nothing
and like former
Yeah.
President Thabo Mbeki has continuously said that the land hunger question is a crisis more for urban areas than what it is for rural areas. Thank you so much for your time. Minister of Human Settlements there, Thembi Simelane.